In this exercise, we're going to flip things around. I've been showing you how to place images into Illustrator, so we're placing Photoshop stuff into Illustrator. Now we're going to take illustrations and open them up in Photoshop. So we're going to go the opposite direction. And so what I'm hoping here is that you have a moderate amount of Photoshop experience. Most Illustrator users dabble in Photoshop too, so I'm hoping that's true for you. And also, I'm hoping you have Photoshop on your machine. So that might mean any version of the Creative Suite, by the way. Just about every version of the Creative Suite includes Illustrator. I think there's just one that doesn't. And then every single version of the Creative Suite includes Photoshop. So hopefully you got it lying around because we'll be working in Photoshop inside this very exercise. I've saved my progress as unlikelydinosaurstory.ai, found inside the 21 Photoshop folder. Just in case you're curious, it's here. And also I have open this illustration that will appear familiar to those of you who have been working along with me. It's called NotNumber3.ai, also found inside the 21 Photoshop folder. So it's got a different color scheme going on. I've modified the interior section of this knot so that the strokes get thicker as they go toward the center. And then I've created this border around the illustration as well. And I created the border, incidentally, as a collection of 5 of these things. And I'm going to do it for you because it's actually a really useful technique. It's a blend, by the way. And so it's not anything terribly hard, but it's easy to throw together this kind of stuff. And I just want you to be thinking outside the box when you're working with things like blends and other effects inside Illustrator. So I'm going to go ahead and bust up this blend by clicking on it to select it with my black arrow tool. And I'm going to go up to the object menu. I'm going to choose blend and I'm going to choose release. And that'll go ahead and bust things up. And we're left with the pieces, essentially the stuff that I used to create the blend in the first place. But we're going to go back even farther than that. We're going to get rid of just about all this stuff. I'm going to twirl open this layer right here, which is called Rear Items here inside the Layers panel. And I'm going to collapse the Gradient panel as well, just so that we have a little more room to work. And I'm going to de-meatball this guy right there by shift-clicking on its meatball. So I'm working inside the top group item here inside the Layers panel. And then everything else we'll just get rid of. And so what you should see is this guy right here left over. Now, let me tell you what's going on with this specific path. I'm going to twirl it open. It's actually a collection of 2 paths. So I'll show you how each one's put together. This guy right there is just your typical everyday average compound path. So we've got a big circle with a smaller circle cutting a hole out of it. And of course, it's filled with a gradient. And then I've got a smaller circle inside, also filled with a gradient. They both have the same strokes, by the way, which are 4-point rich black strokes. And they're set inside of a group. And you may recall from our discussion of blending when we worked with those fence posts, how you can blend between groups inside of Illustrator. So starting with that guy, I'm going to go ahead and select the entire group by meatballing the group here inside the Layers panel. And I'll twirl the group close as well. And now I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to drag it over to the right section, to the upper right corner of that square guide that I've set up in advance. And I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac when I drop it into place. So I'm dragging by the center point, by the way, as I do this. Then I'll Alt drag or Option drag it to this location. Drag it to this location, press the Alt or Option key on the Mac in order to clone. And then I'm going to drag it to about here. Not directly on top of itself because we wouldn't really know what was going on if we do that. We have to complete the cycle though, don't you know? Because we're going to blend from this guy to there, then to here, and then back again. But if the 2 paths are coincident right on top of each other initially, then we're not going to have the control we need. So I'm just going to set this guy up right about there. And I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac in order to clone it into that new location. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and grab everything on this Rear Items layer. And I'll do that by clicking in that upper right corner on that little wedge there on the layer inside the Layers panel. And that selects everything on this background layer, including, by the way, the backmost path. And we don't want that big rear rectangle selected, so I'm going to shift-click on it in order to deselect it. And I could either shift-click inside the illustration window or on the meatball, which is what I chose to do. So all we've got selected now are the 5 sort of circle inside of a circle patterns. Now I'm going to go up to the Object menu, choose Blend, and choose Make. Or you can press Control-Alt-B, Command-Option-B on the Mac, and you create this blend right here. Now, if you're not seeing the same results I am with every single one of these circles exactly aligning with each other, and in case that seems like, boy, what a big mysterious coincidence that I got these to line up exactly right, well, each one of these circles is exactly 100 points wide. And then this big square guideline here measures exactly 700 by 700 points. And so that means that we can fit exactly 6 of these circles in between each one of the extremes. And that's what Illustrator has chosen to do for me. It's created exactly 6 intermediate circles. But if it didn't for you, then you would double-click on the Blend tool. In order to bring up the Blend Options dialog box, you would switch the spacing from smooth color to specified steps, and then you would raise that value to 6, like so, and then click OK in order to accept the modification. All right, now we need to grab this guy right there and drag him back up all the way so he's coincident with the circle up here in the top left corner. And you're going to do that by clicking off, if you're working along with me, in order to deselect the paths. And using your wide arrow tool, I want you to Alt-click 3 times. So we're first selecting, with the first Alt or Option click, you're selecting the outside circle. With the second one, you're selecting the inside of that compound path. And then with that third Alt or Option click, you're selecting the entire group. Don't Alt or Option click a 4th time, because you'll select the entire blend. We don't want that. All right, normally I would advise you to go ahead and drag the path by its center up to this new location. But if you do that, you'll grab the path of the blend. If you take a look at this blend here inside the Layers panel, go ahead and twirl it open. You'll see that there's a path at the top of the stack. That's the path of the blend, and it happens to begin right there, and it's got corner points at each one of the corners of the square, and then it ends right at that location there. If you start dragging from there, you'll end up dragging an anchor point inside the path of the blend, and you'll deselect the group that you've selected so far. So I would drag it by this outside point right there, up like so it snaps into alignment with that top circle, and then release. Don't press the Alt or Option key to clone it, just release it at that location, and you end up getting this effect here. So that's how you create that border pattern. Now, more to the point, what in the world are we doing? I told you we're going to be working with this illustration inside of Photoshop, and yet I spent the entire time showing you how to do something inside of Illustrator, which is great, because this is, after all, an Illustrator training series. But what we're going to do in the next exercise is we're going to take this guy and we're going to rasterize it inside Photoshop. I'll explain how and I'll explain why in the next exercise.